Have you ever reached a moment where you got everything you thought you wanted, and still felt restless inside? Have you ever wondered why peace feels like something you chase, instead of something you can actually live from? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are exploring what it really means to live with a peaceful heart, not as a mood, not as a weekend retreat glow, but as a way of being that holds steady through praise and blame, gain and loss, comfort and discomfort, connection and loneliness. In Buddhist psychology and heart-centered teachings, equanimity is not a cold distance from life. It is a warm steadiness that lets you love without clinging and act without hatred. If you have ever felt like your kindness makes you vulnerable, or your sensitivity makes you tired, this episode is for you. Let me start with a story that feels ordinary, because the most important spiritual lessons usually show up in ordinary places. Imagine someone named Grace. Grace is the kind of person who looks fine from the outside. She is responsible, supportive, and reliable. People come to her with problems because they know she will show up. But inside, Grace is exhausted, not only from doing too much, but from carrying an invisible weight. The weight of needing to be okay for everyone else. She feels like if she stops being strong, everything will fall apart. She does not even notice how tight her jaw is most days until she tries to meditate and realizes her whole body is bracing like it is waiting for a hit. Grace wants a peaceful heart, but she thinks peace means nothing hurts, nothing shakes her, nothing surprises her. She thinks peace is a state she must reach by fixing herself. So she tries to fix herself. She changes routine. She reads advice. She forces positivity. She avoids difficult conversations. She tries to control the people around her so they do not upset her. She tries to control herself so she does not feel too much. And still, the heart is not peaceful. One evening, Grace sits alone in her car after a long day. She does not want to go inside yet because inside means chores, messages, responsibilities, and the quiet fear of not being enough. She sits in the dark and notices her hands are shaking slightly. Not dramatic, just a subtle tremor of fatigue and stress. She realizes something that hits her like a truth she has been refusing. I am not living. I am managing. This is where the path begins for a lot of people. Not when life is comfortable, but when you are tired of living as a bundle of reactions. Grace hears a talk about living with a peaceful heart. The teacher does not promise perfect calm. The teacher speaks about a heart that can be peaceful, even when emotions move through it. A heart that can be tender without being weak. A heart that can grieve without collapsing. A heart that can love without needing to possess. Grace feels something soften just hearing that, because it gives her permission to stop chasing a fantasy of unshakable calm, and instead train a deeper steadiness. That deeper steadiness is equanimity. Equanimity is sometimes described as balance, but balance is not the absence of feeling. Balance is the ability to feel without being thrown. The teacher explains it in a way that Grace remembers. Life has weather. Your heart can become the sky. Weather comes, weather goes. The sky does not need to fight it. At first, Grace resists this. She thinks, if I allow weather, will I become passive? Will I stop caring? Will I stop trying? But the teaching is clear. A peaceful heart is not a lazy heart. It is a clear heart. It is the heart that chooses wise action without being driven by panic or hatred. So Grace begins to practice in small ways. The first practice is learning to notice the moment she gets hijacked. Hijacked is the best word for it. Someone says something sharp and suddenly she is not herself. A memory gets triggered and suddenly she is back in an old scene. A fear appears and suddenly, the mind starts planning disasters. She begins to see that her suffering is not only the event, but the way the mind multiplies the event. This is where Buddhist psychology becomes extremely practical. When an experience enters through the senses, the mind labels it as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then comes the reflex. Pleasant, want more. Unpleasant, push away. Neutral, drift. That reflex runs most people's lives. Grace sees it in herself. Someone praises her, and she feels a rush. Then fear of losing approval. Someone criticizes her, and she feels shame. Then anger. Someone ignores her message, and she feels anxiety. Then a compulsive need to fix it. Even boredom becomes suffering because boredom triggers the craving for stimulation. Equanimity is the training that interrupts the reflex. Grace begins with the breath, not as a magical breath that fixes everything, but as an anchor that reminds her she is here. When she feels the surge of reaction, she takes one deliberate breath. She feels her feet. She softens her shoulders. She names what is happening without judging it. Tightness, heat, fear, sadness, wanting, resisting. Naming is powerful because it pulls experience out of the fog and into awareness. In the fog, emotion feels like identity. In awareness, emotion feels like weather. At first this seems too simple. Grace wants a bigger solution. But then she notices something. If she can name an emotion, she is not completely lost in it. The naming creates a little space, and in that space she can choose. Choice is the beginning of freedom. Grace tests this at home. Her partner forgets something important. Grace feels the familiar wave rising. It is not just irritation. It is the old story that she is alone in responsibility, that she must carry everything, that she is unseen. In the past she would attack or shut down. The attack would create conflict. Shut down would create distance. Either way, peace would disappear. This time she tries the pause. She feels her breath. She notices the urge to lash out. She notices the urge to be icy. She notices how both urges are attempts to protect her from vulnerability. She breathes again, then she speaks differently. She says, "I feel stressed and I need support. Can we talk about how to share this?" It is not perfect. Her voice still shakes, but it is honest. The conversation is not easy, but it is real, and something surprising happens. She feels more peaceful afterward. Not because everything went her way, but because she did not betray herself. A peaceful heart is not a heart that avoids truth. It is a heart that can hold truth without collapsing. Now, there is a deeper layer. Many people think equanimity is just emotional regulation, but it is also wisdom about impermanence. Everything changes. If you try to build your safety on what changes, you will suffer. If you build your safety on a steady relationship with change, you become resilient. Grace begins to practice this in meditation. She sits and watches sensations arise and pass. An itch arises, passes. A thought arises, passes. A wave of sadness arises, passes. A moment of calm arises, passes. The mind wants to cling to calm and push away sadness. She notices this and practices staying. Staying is the heart of the training. Staying does not mean forcing yourself through pain. It means meeting the moment without adding unnecessary struggle. If the emotion is too intense, she grounds in the body, opens her eyes, shortens the session, and returns gently later. This is not quitting. This is wise care. Over time, the mind learns it can tolerate. It can endure without hardening. It can feel without drowning. This changes everything. Grace begins to realize that much of her exhaustion came from resistance. She resisted discomfort. She resisted uncertainty. She resisted other people's imperfection. She resisted her own grief. Resistance is like holding a heavy weight with arms locked. Equanimity teaches you to put the weight down, not by denying reality, but by releasing the inner fight. Now let us talk about the heart. Because living with a peaceful heart is not only about mindfulness, it is also about love. Many people have a heart that is either open and unstable, or stable and closed. When it is open, it gets hurt easily. When it is closed, it feels safe but lonely. The path is to become open and stable at the same time. This is where compassion and equanimity support each other. Compassion opens the heart to suffering with the wish to help. Equanimity keeps the heart from burning out. Without equanimity, compassion becomes overwhelmed, especially for sensitive people. Without compassion, equanimity can become detached. Together they create a peaceful heart that remains warm. Grace learns this with a friend who is struggling. Her friend calls late at night in crisis. Grace wants to help. She also feels drained. In the past, she would sacrifice sleep and then resent it later. Or she would avoid the call and then feel guilty. This time she practices compassionate clarity. She answers and listens for a few minutes. She offers care. Then she says, "I care about you and I want to support you. And I also need rest tonight. Can we talk tomorrow at this time, and can you reach out to another support right now if it feels urgent?" She expects her friend to be offended. Her friend is not. Her friend is grateful for the honesty. Grace realizes something. Boundaries are not the opposite of love. Boundaries are what make love sustainable. This is a huge lesson for anyone who wants a peaceful heart. Peace is not built by pleasing everyone. Peace is built by living in alignment with wisdom and kindness. Now the teacher in the talk speaks about a peaceful heart in the face of life's eight winds. Praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, pleasure and pain. You can feel these winds every day. A compliment lifts you. A criticism stings you. A small success excites you. A small failure crushes you. You feel tossed around. Equanimity is learning to stand in the wind without being blown away. Grace starts to notice how praise affects her. She thought she only struggled with criticism. But praise also hijacks her. Praise makes her addicted to being seen as good. It makes her afraid of making mistakes. It makes her perform. She begins to practice receiving praise with gratitude but not with dependence. She says thank you and returns to her work. She does not replay the praise for hours. She enjoys it and lets it pass. This is also equanimity. Then she works with blame. When blame comes, she notices the sting and the urge to defend. She asks, "Is there truth here I can learn from?" If yes, she learns. If not, she releases. Either way, she does not let blame define her worth. That is freedom. Now let us connect this to karma and destiny in a grounded way. Karma is the momentum of habit. If you repeatedly react with panic, panic becomes your default. If you repeatedly react with resentment, resentment becomes your default. If you repeatedly return to balance, balance becomes your default. This is not mystical. It is the nervous system and the mind learning through repetition. Every time Grace pauses before reacting, she changes her destiny a little. She changes the kind of person she is becoming. She changes the quality of her relationships. She changes the future moments that will arise. Because her actions plant causes. This is why equanimity is not passive. It is active training in the causes of freedom. Grace also begins to notice something else. A peaceful heart is helped by simplicity. Not extreme simplicity, but enough simplicity that the mind is not constantly overloaded. She reduces unnecessary stimulation. She sleeps a little better. She chooses fewer arguments. She limits the intake of content that inflames outrage. She spends more time in quiet nature. This supports equanimity because the mind is less constantly poked. She still has challenges. She still feels, but she feels with a steadier center. Now, a peaceful heart is also tested by grief. This is where equanimity becomes deeply meaningful. Because grief is unavoidable. Loss comes in many forms. Loss of people, loss of plans, loss of identity, loss of the version of life you imagined. Grace experiences grief when a family member becomes ill. She cannot fix it. She cannot control it. She feels fear and sadness. Equanimity does not remove grief. It allows grief to be held with tenderness. Grace cries and still shows up. Grace feels pain and still offers care. Grace feels helpless and still chooses kindness. This is a peaceful heart. Not because it is happy, but because it is not at war with reality. A peaceful heart is a heart that can break and still remain loving. Now I want to speak directly to you as the person watching this, because this teaching is not meant to stay inside a story. It is meant to become your life. If you are looking for a peaceful heart, do not aim for a life that never triggers you. That life does not exist. Instead, aim for a mind that can be triggered and still return. Aim for the skill of coming back. Coming back to breath. Coming back to the body. Coming back to kindness. Coming back to values. Coming back to the present. Each return is a vote for freedom. And if you feel like you are failing because you keep getting pulled away, remember this: the pulling away is not the failure. The failure would be never returning. If you return again and again, you are practicing. That is the heart wisdom. Not perfection, repetition, not fantasy calm. Real steadiness, not shutting down. Widening awareness. Thank you for being here with me today. If you have felt the difference between managing life and living life, share your story in the comments. If you have a practice that helps you return to a peaceful heart, share it too. Someone reading may feel less alone. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay with us if you want more teachings that turn equanimity into daily life strength. Until next time, keep your heart open, keep your center steady, and keep choosing the kind of peace that can live through any weather.